Hello and welcome to our Exceptional Connections Virtual Wisdom Circle, the heart behind the daily hustle of champions. I'm Cindy O'Neill Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. This is a community that I've had the privilege of leading since 2009. Each month, we spotlight one of our champion connectors who explore the heart, purpose, habits, and experiences shaping their personal and professional journey. Today, I am honored to welcome Marlee Huber from Everett, Washington. Marlee, we're so glad you're here.
Thank you. It's delightful to be here.
At Exceptional Connections, we believe success isn't defined solely by what we accomplish. It's also shaped by who we become along the journey. By sharing authentic stories, challenges, lessons, and victories, we create a community where people feel seen, heard, valued, and inspired to grow. We'll spend the next 30 to 40 minutes getting to know Marlee before opening the conversation to your questions. As you listen, please jot down any insights or questions you'd like to share during our live Q&A. So welcome, Marlee.
Thank you.
Again,
Thank you.
before we explore the heart and the secret sauces behind our success, I'd love to ask you to begin at the beginning. So, would you share a little bit about your background and the journey that led you to where you are today, especially for those of our exceptional connector in our community who haven't had the pleasure of getting to know you yet?
Well, if you'll put on the first slide,
I
it's
will do that.
there.
Okay, let's see here. I think it cut off a little bit here. There we go.
There we go. Okay, the heart behind the daily hustle. I kind of laugh at that because I don't think that I hustle. I think that's not in my wheelhouse. That's not kind of how I do things. And I think as I begin to share that you will see that, yeah, she probably doesn't hustle much. So, my name is Marlee Huber, and I do have letters behind my name. I have a Master of Librarianship, which is probably why I'm a storyteller. And I always say the story is the shortest distance between two generations. And you can see me there with my grandfather. So, moving on to the next slide, who am I? And when I was in the process of writing my book, I happened to find a little book of my dad's. And as I opened it, it had his favorite poems, his favorite hymns, it had sermon notes, it had scriptures, it had some captions. And as I looked at them, I felt like I was looking at a reflection of who I am. I'm like, wow. This is me in this book. And here you can see my dad in front of the house that he built. Now, my dad loved gardens, and I love gardens. That's part of who I am. And who the person behind the person who might do some hustling in their business. My dad at one house planted 100 rose bushes. And so he just was a garden lover. Moving on to the next slide, my mom. My mom kept us going straight. Now, my dad was really a minstrel. He was a pastor, but he was a minstrel. He memorized poems and psalms and songs and scriptures, and he would play his accordion and sing. He'd go to nursing homes and hospitals and even taught classes at the Washington State Penitentiary. But my mom, she was all law and order. She's the one that kept the financials. She's the one that kept us going straight. She too loved gardens. And when I was in ninth grade, I hit a roadblock, and it was called geometry. And now this is a straight A student you're looking at. And when I hit geometry, I had a little talk, or I should say the teacher had a little talk with me and said, Marlee, if you don't buckle down, you're going to fail this class. And failure was not in my wheelhouse. So every afternoon, my mother would sit with me and we would do geometry. And that's the only reason I passed geometry. But life is pretty ironic. And my husband did not come awake academically until he hit geometry. And it's like the whole world exploded and opened up for him academically when he hit geometry. So it's a good thing that he and I are together. Moving on to the next slide. I've always loved wheeled conveyances. And I had a little red wheelbarrow. I loved my wheelbarrow. I loved bicycles and roller skates and anything that would give me movement. As we would go across the country, we did a lot of traveling when I was a child. I'd always look at the clouds and imagine what it was like to be on top of those clouds. Now, my dad, he always challenged me to look beyond the visual and just see into I guess I would say the spiritual or the beyond. And that's probably why people with my photography say there's something that looks beyond in my photography. So moving to the next slide, you see my first passport picture. At 24, I got on a plane for the first time with my friend and we flew to Europe. I've now been to 13 countries and after our trip last fall to 48 states. And I have a friend, every time I go on a trip, she calls me and she says, "What are your stories? Tell me your stories." Because travel, it leaves you speechless and then it turns you into a storyteller. And I think that's probably a good reason that I am a storyteller. It's because I observe. I love to travel. I love to be on the go and see things. And so, moving on to the next slide, my first transition was into librarianship. I became an academic librarian at Northwest University from 1972 to 1979. Now, I'm going to go into the Gallup Strength Finder here because it has helped me so much understand who I am. I have a degree in history. Now, when you get a master's degree in librarianship, you can study in any field you want to. And I chose history. Now, I never knew why I chose history. But when I did the Gallup Strength Finder 2.0, I discovered that my top five strengths, and my first one is context, which it comes from the strategic thinking section of the four sections. And I began to realize no wonder I was a history major. I had to get context with the world. My second one was ideation, and that's also strategic thinking. And it's like once I get context, then I get ideas. And when I'm doing anything creatively, I find the same thing. I've got to get some context, then the ideas come. My third one is woo, which is in the influencer um, quarter of the whole. And that's how I win people over. Um, and I use my woo when I talk, when I share, because I get really excited and I want to win you over to whatever it is I'm sharing. Generally, the ideas that I've gotten from the context that I have gained. My next one is I have to learn some more. So no wonder I was a college librarian because I was the cataloger and every new book came over my desk and I got to be exposed to so many ideas. And you'll see once again, that's in the strategic thinking section. And then finally, I have another one in the influencer section, and that's maximizer. Now, how do I use these? I use these when I coach people because I get so excited when I get context with another person. What I want to do is get some ideas and then I want to win them over to who they are, how amazing they are. Then I learn a little bit more and then I'm always like, let's take you from good to great. So that's how the strengths finders work for me. And if we move on to the next slide, you'll see that I had a master's in, I had a degree in history and a minor in English. And these two fields are both built around story. And that's everything always gravitates to me to a story. There's got to be a story that will explain this truth. And story really puts color into the black and white history. When we read old history and we see old pictures, we think, oh, it's black and white. But story adds the color. We get the dimension. And then story invites reflection. And you'll see these two pictures here, just reflection. And that's when I coach people with this coaching program that I've developed, I always want to come down to one word that really identifies who they are. And when I've done that with myself, I realized my word is reflection, which is why I have loved gardens from a child. Gardens are places where I go to reflect and to do my strategic thinking in the world. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So I want to share with you, I don't know if you can pull this up any higher, Cindy. Um, maybe it's all, I guess it's all there, yeah. On the Gallup Strengths Finder, there are 34 streams of talent. And what you need to know with the top five, you are one in 33 million people. This is amazing to me that in the United States, there would only be 10 other people who would come out that would test out in this assessment exactly like you. So the chances of meeting another person like you are very slim. But there are 34, and I'm going to kind of explain these a little bit because your top 10 are really the ones that help define you and show you where you can really do your best work in the world. And as I mentioned, four of my top six fit into strategic thinking: learner, ideation, context, and strategic. So I'm pretty much in my head all the time. And um, my top two of my top five are influencing. So that's the maximizer and the woo. And that's how I win people over and get people into line. So herd cats, maybe you might say. So only one of my top seven is in executing. And that's really where the hustle is. I really feel that people have a lot of this executing. They can really achieve and uh, just have a lot of success, a lot of things on their resume. I only have one, and that's focus. And I have learned that if I want to achieve something, I have to focus. If I want to clean the counter in my house, I start at one end and I focus. I just move straight across till I get it done. If a squirrel runs across the tree outside my window, I'm gone. And I know that about myself. I did a deep clean. Lisa will get a kick out of this. I did a deep clean in my house a couple of years ago. I started at my front door and I worked all the way around methodically through all of the rooms until I got back to the front door because that's the only way that I could do that. So that's my one a trait in my wheelhouse that helps me get things done. So three of my top 10 are in relationship building. Adaptability just means I go with the flow. So when the squirrel runs by, I tend to chase after that squirrel. And then connectedness means everything happens for a reason. So there must have been a reason that squirrel ran by my window. And then I turn it into positivity because that's my other one. So you kind of see how I'm wired. I would really like to encourage you to take this assessment and to see your life and experiences through the lens of your strengths. Because what we need is we need to find people in our lives who have the strengths that we don't have. It doesn't work to do the burnout skills, but I hope this has helped you see just through the lens of one individual how these work. And I meet so many people, they say, oh yeah, I did Strength Finder, but I don't remember what they are. And I think they have helped me so much to get things done because particularly with that focus, I realize I have got to focus. I can't allow those squirrels to get in my vision. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so I want to talk to you briefly about the power of a big dream. How did Marlee decide she wanted to be a librarian? Well, in ninth grade, they have you pick three careers and you're supposed to research them. And somewhere in that process, I knew I wanted to be a librarian. I wanted to be a librarian at Northwest College in Kirkland, Washington. That was our church college. And I decided in my big dream that they would hire me when I turned 40, which is kind of a funny thing, but that's just what I decided. But there is a power in a big dream. So within 2 weeks of arriving at the University of Washington at age 22 to begin my master's degree, I received a call where I was pretty much hired right on the spot. And I worked part-time while pursuing my master's, and then I served as assistant librarian from 1973 until 1979. So I say never underestimate the power of a big dream because it may get you where you want to go 18 years earlier than you expected. Um, I will say that there is a downside to reaching that big dream early because at about 30, I left that job and I was kind of aimless because I didn't know what do I do after I've already done my big dream and I'm not even 40. So let's go on to the next one. And in the midst of working on that, I married the man of my dreams. And on July 17th, we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. And I have to say that if a girl, thank you, Marcel, that if a girl could marry a saint, she would identify him as Clark Huber. Because where I have lack, where I cannot focus, the man is fastidious. Like I say, he has kept me in really good style because he is a math nerd. He sits around and does calculus and all kinds of stuff and has provided a good lifestyle because my lack in that field really needed what he had. Um, but he has some lacks too. And he could just be on point doing his little engineering thing all the time. But I say I put the color into his life and he hangs on to my balloon strings. So you see why he needs to hang on to my balloon strings, because if I lose focus, I'm off on a wild goose chase. So he measures everything he does. He measures. He's got tape measures and voltmeters and this kind of measure and that kind of measure. He goes through life every day measuring reality while I mentally visualize the unseen, which is why when I show him my photos that I've worked on this photo to make it a fine art, and I'll say, "What do you think?" And he'll go, "Okay." And I'm like, are there no other words that could describe it? But he's got a measure. You see, we're all put together so differently. He cannot measure my art. So he just says, okay. And I want to let you know we have two daughters, two wonderful sons-in-laws. Our daughters are wonderful too, and five amazing grandchildren. So that's that part of my life. But oh my, does he ever keep me going? So my second transition after I was a librarian, I stepped into direct sales. In 1985, I joined Noevia USA, which is a Japanese anti-aging skincare company. I've been with them ever since. They pretty much are on the back burner these days and have been for a while. In 99 to about 2002, I did sold weekenders, but I've always kept the Noavier business. I have wondered what I would be like had I stayed as a librarian. As a librarian, I was very timid. I was like a little mouse in the corner. But when I got into direct sales, that built my confidence, personal development. And I had a fear of the telephone as a child. That really helped solve that fear of the phone and the fear of public speaking. And then I joined Toastmasters, and that was really my practicum. Now, when I got into direct sales, I I would have really good days, and Clark would come home, and I'd go, "Oh, Clark, I'm going to make so much money because this happened." The next day, he'd come home, and I'm like, "Oh, everybody quit." And so it was like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. But I learned two things that have helped me, and I've trained people. I've trained my kids in this. In fact, I had a friend call me this morning, and she said, "Marlee, you always say it's no unless you ask." And I said, Yeah, what do you need? So I've learned it's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. And if you can realize that from where I am now to the destination I need to go to, the shortest distance really is a straight line. So to not get overexcited one day and down in the dumps the next day, you will get there faster. And I'm happy to say that I earned the title of Diamond Director with No Avier. So these are just two of the things that I think have helped me in my hustle, helped me tremendously. Okay, next slide. My third transition, we all have the dark night of the soul, I think. And I was the Northwest director for the Allie Lasson's Leads Club. We had 20 networking groups throughout Washington and Oregon. I only did it for about 18 months because it was really exhausting for me. I remember one day I was speaking to a leads group and I literally felt the energy drain out of my body. I looked immediately to the floor to see if I could see a puddle of energy and what it looked like because it just totally drained. And that was a real time of healing. My dad was failing. He required a lot of our attention. I was speaking between No Avier, Leads Clubs, other things, 15 to 20 times a month. And that really was a dark night of the soul. So moving ahead. But out of all of that came my fourth transition, which was life coaching. And I just felt strongly I was supposed to pursue this. And I got my first certification. And then I was certified as a job and career transition coach. And that was amazing. And when I did the life coaching, I took a seminar on the four personality styles with using the DISC model. And I was really intrigued by that. It was in a networking group at that time with Dr. Orv Owens, who is a local psychologist and sales strategy. He does sales strategy through the four personality styles, and he would repeat every single week 95% of the population is motivated by fear and 5% by love. And one day he walked up to me and he said, "You're love motivated." And I'm like, "How do you know that? I don't even know that." And so I thought, well, I better learn more about this. And so I mentioned it to a pastor at my church who said, "Oh, some people think that's of the devil." And I'm like, "What?" So I thought, okay, I'll go to the source. I was going through menopause anyway. I wasn't sleeping. So what's 3, 4, 5 hours in the middle of the night? Opening my Bible to Genesis 1 and starting through to learn about the four personality styles. And I have to say, what I learned was the most thrilling thing I have ever learned in my life. And I started doing seminars on what I call radiant life mapping. It's how do you radiate from the inside out? And, you know, if 95% of the population is motivated by fear, 5% by love. How do we turn that around? Well, most of us don't know how to become lovers and how to see it. And I had a chart, I had maps, I had language, and as I began to share, I taught people how to love from their heart, their soul, their mind, and their strength. And it says if we don't, we're to love God with our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength. We're to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. There's a lot of loving that needs to go on there. And so I would teach these seminars. I taught them at several churches, different studies, groups. And as I did, I have never seen people more excited about what they were learning. I remember one group, it was really hard to get away afterwards because so many questions, so many people going. They got such breakthroughs. I had one lady, I think she lost like 100 pounds. She realized fear was what was holding her back. Another woman, she walked off without her cane, just in one seminar. I was so excited about this. And I guess my one big regret is that I can't keep focused enough to write the book on it. So I want to, moving on to the next slide, I want to show you what a radiant life map looks like. It's a visual map with basically 5 blocks that give language for how we're wired. So that center block is we are spirit beings. We have life, we have love, and we're in the light. And then we have a soul, and the soul are the four around. You see the position where it says mind, strength, soul, and heart, or heart. And each one of those is strategic for how they're positioned to the east, the west, the north, the south. When I teach this, I teach you about the north, south, east, and west. It's amazing and how they apply to our strengths. So, Radiant Life Mapping looks at the behavior styles through the 4 windows of how we are made to love with our heart, with our soul, with our mind, and with our strength. And it shows us how to move from fear domination to love domination. And um, there's some statistics like over 80% of us, we ruminate over and over and over from the whatever's going on in our mind, the dark side. We just replay those tapes. We get in a loop, and Radiant Life Mapping shows you how to get out of that loop. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. My fifth transition was brief. It was 90 days that changed my life. It was a bicycle trip across America with my engineer. This is the one time he has planned a trip. Generally, I plan all the trips. Otherwise, he'd just stay home and putter and engineer. But I plan the trips except for this one. He wanted to bicycle to his brother's house in Virginia. And I said, I'll go along, but I won't sleep on the ground. So he bought me this beautiful trailer. I had never driven a truck and pulled a trailer. I did. Over those 90 days, when you move across this country at 50 miles a day max, sometimes only 35 miles a day, you see a lot. You get a real sense for the amazing people that are on the back roads of this country. He's out there pedaling like crazy for, 50 miles. And I had my camera, which I had just gotten. I didn't know how to use it except on auto. And I'm using my camera and I'm seeing and I'm looking for beauty. I don't know why. I just was like, there's God. And so if you move on to the next slide, Cindy, um, the day I found beauty in Kansas. And, Kansas was pretty dry by the time we got there. It was the hottest, driest summer in 100 years. And we saw the corn and the soybeans. They're drying up. There's no crop. And we got to Kansas, and I'm sitting by the side of the road, and I'm waiting for my engineer. And I look out the window, and I'm like, there's got to be beauty here somewhere. And I saw this dried flower head curled around this piece of barbed wire. And it really is beauty here. Beauty, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but this is kind of a preamble to that. You see how the backside of that flower just radiates out. It's being held by barbed wire. Imagine that. And if you can look closely, you can see that the wire has jabbed into the stem. Beauty is not always pretty. Sometimes there's a reality of life. Yes, that barb has hooked into that flower head, but it's held that flower head steady for how many months? We don't know. And as I stood there, and I actually was sitting in the cab of my truck, aiming my camera at this, I'm like, I have found beauty. This, to me, this was one of the most amazing pictures I took on that trip. Okay, let's move to the next slide. And so I came home from that trip. And my husband went back to work as if nothing had happened. I'm like, what? And I looked at my life and I'm like, I have to change everything. I cannot do life like I've done it in the past. I just simply cannot do life like I've done it in the past. And so I basically withdrew from everything I had going. I had had a prayer group at my home for 4 years before that, did not restart it. I didn't I just started withdrawing and backing off from things. In 2013, I attended a writers' conference where a Catholic screenwriter changed my life in her 45-minute talk on the philosophic meaning of beauty. She went back to Plato and she studied and she began to teach us about what beauty is. And if you know there are three transcendentals. We don't talk about them much anymore: goodness, truth, and beauty. Some people think that beauty is the only one that postmodern man really notices. Goodness and truth, we've kind of lost touch with. But beauty, we still can stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon with our mouths open and just go, wow. So here's what she said in 45 minutes that absolutely changed my life. She said, beauty is composed of three things: wholeness, harmony, and radiance. Wholeness means it's all there. So if you see the little daisies there, all the little petals are there. It's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. And when you get it all together and you put that last piece in, what do you experience? You experience peace. There's a completion and you have peace. So wholeness gives us peace. Harmony. Harmony is looking at this picture that I have here, and you see the center in the background faded out. You see the center of the daisy, but then in the droplets, you see the repetition. So you see repetition there, and that's what harmony is. It's repetition, the curve, the circles, it's all circles. And harmony, wholeness, harmony gives us joy. So when we see that repetition, we're like, whoa, we see the patterns. You see the quilt behind me, and it's all patterns, old shirts sewn together, but it's all patterns. There's a lot of joy when we see harmony. And then radiance. What does radiance do? Well, radiance is like when I taught radiant life mapping, and people got so excited. You really can't define radiance. It's coming into this place. It's like seeing two young lovers. They don't even have to say words. You can feel the radiance. They radiate such love. And so when she got done with her talk, talking about wholeness, harmony, radiance, peace, joy, love, and that beauty sometimes has pain, like when that flower is being jabbed by the barbed wire, but it's also being held by the barbed wire. So I came home from that seminar and I'm like, I have to release beauty. You wonder where my photography came from? I have to release beauty. And so I joined a 2-year contemplative prayer program where I prayed to release beauty into the world. And it was interesting because as the months went on, I post things to Facebook. I started seeing the word beauty show up over and over and over again when I posted my pictures. It was during this time that I also began working on my book. And, I mentioned reflection. And this picture is a reflection. So much of what I do is reflection. And during this time of deep stillness, after this big bicycle trip across America, it was all about reflection. And so you can move on to the next one, and you'll see my book, the cover of my book, A Life of Resounding Joy: How One Family's Love Affair with Jesus Can Be Your Family's Life, Family Storyline Too. This book took me a lifetime to write because it's about my grandfather, and he passed away before I was 2. You saw him in the first slide. This book will change how you think about family. This book will change how you think about God and how you think about how much God loves families. And as I shared this book, oh my goodness, I've had such amazing responses. One woman who their family was just broken apart. She'd only had 2 conversations with her daughter the year before. And as she's reading my book, she had something happen that never happened to her before. She said, I heard God talking to me. And out of this conversation, she's having this conversation with God, and he's telling her she has done the right thing and how she's prayed for her daughter by releasing her and letting her go. All of a sudden, the phone rang, and it was her daughter. And her daughter said, Mom, I know I've caused you a lot of trouble. Can we start over in our relationship? That came out of this book. I had another gal who had been, oh my goodness, she had been through 8 drug rehabilitation treatment centers, finally the 8th one. And she was given my book, and she asked the person who gave her, would you contact the author for me? She said, I am so drawn to this book. I want my family to be like this book. She said, would you ask the author to pray for me? Which totally delighted me. So I tell people, buy my book, just set it on your coffee table, set it on your night table. There's just such good stuff in it. I read it all the time. I have to tell you that because you can read it the first time as a story, because there's great stories in there. But read it the second time to go deep, to reflect on the really important things in your life, your family, your relationship with God, to reflect. There's a ton of reflection in there. It's quite amazing. I think it was the Maximizer that went to work on this book. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so we probably won't be able to see my photography because that's another issue, but I want to share 3 views into my photography and into my writing. The first one is storytelling. And I love to do storytelling in black and white. And the reason is probably because I follow squirrels. And when you take away the color, you simplify. And what happens is there's an emotional connection with the picture. And you begin to get into the person, the way the person is holding their head or their hands or interacting with another person. Even flowers, you can see emotions in flowers. And what does storytelling do? Why do we need to tell stories? Because they build confidence. If I can read a story about someone who went through a dark night of the soul and emerged on the other side and came into this wonderful, wonderful experience, it builds confidence that when I'm going through my dark night of the soul, I can come through on the other side and really succeed. Okay, and then there's color. I love to photograph in color. You remember I said I put color in the engineer's life and he holds on to my balloon strings? Well, colors shape our emotions. When I was a librarian, if you notice that picture, I'm standing in front of a bright orange wall. That when that library was built, and that was the dedication day when that picture was taken, we did not understand color theory. And the other librarian decided orange should be the color in that library. And so the tops of the tables were orange, the walls were orange, the card catalog in that day was orange. We could not keep that place silent. It had as much energy as a McDonald's with the music going. I mean, it vibrated because we didn't understand color theory. We didn't know that those bright colors are energetic and they're vibrant and you want to laugh and talk. You don't want to do the library thing there. And the blues, the cool, you'll notice the picture here of the sand dunes. You see a lot of horizontal shapes and they calm us down. Blues and purples, they calm us down. So color really does trigger psychological responses. My third view into photography is reflection. One of my favorite things to do is take pictures of reflections, reflections in water, in puddles, in sidewalks, wet sidewalks. Oh my goodness, I'm just drawn to reflection because it's my word. It's what I do. And there can be healthy reflections where we can reflect on how grateful we are in our lives. And there can be unhealthy reflections where we ruminate on and get stuck in that loop and just go round and round like, how am I going to get out of this loop? What is going to happen? I have to tell you, taking 50 years to write a book, I did a lot of unhealthy ruminating in getting that book published. So let's move to the last slide. Um, and you can contact me, Marlee at marleehuber.com. And if you do, or if you have done the Strengths Finder and you'd like somebody to just do a little strategic thinking about how it fits with who you are, how you can use it to your advantage, what things you have to watch out for, I would love to do that. You can order a copy of A Life of Resounding Joy at radiantlifemapping.com. And maybe someday Radiant Life Mapping will have all of the material on it to help people get what they would get in my seminars. So I think this takes us around the circle for how I do my hustle. And I don't know that my hustle is very hustling. I spend a lot of time in gardens. I will say that, doing a lot of reflection, but that is what allows me to move forward.
Wow, Marley, thank you so much. That was really beautiful. Um, and there's so many things that I've known about you, but you put it together so beautifully that I feel like I have a better sense of your journey and with your different transitions. Um, and you really integrated the questions that we ask the those who are featured for the Heart Behind the Daily Hustle. Um, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask a few of these if there's anything you want to add, okay? And then we can open it up. So, kind of in a nutshell, what would you say is the heart behind what you do? Just to put a bow around your
I
time.
the heart, I think it's love. And I think it's I want to win people over to how incredible they are. Each
Mm,
one of us is unique. There has never been another person like you. There will never be another person like you. You are put on this earth with an assignment that only you can do. That's
mm. I'm just thinking about at your disclaimer at the beginning that you don't feel like you are somebody that hustles, right? But we could also just the world around us hustles,
yes.
right? The world is a hustle. And whether we flow with it or resist it is, kind of the question. But what do you think is your secret sauce that has made you who you are?
Well, I have to go back to context,
Mm,
to go back to the family that I was born in. And that's where we started. I go back to the book that I wrote, which is Context. I have to get context before I move ahead. If I don't have context, I took 3 years of quilt design from a woman who had a master's in fine art, and I would compare myself, and this is always the issue. We tend to compare ourselves with others, and I would compare myself with the gal who was, oh my goodness, I think she was a geneticist or something. She would come up with these amazing quilts, and her sister, who was the dentist, I mean, they were just amazing. And I would have a hard time coming up with ideas until I got context. I would see a traditional quilt design and I would read about it and study it. And then from that, I would get the ideas and then I could design the quilt.
So that's what I really love about your sharing is you're really focusing on know thyself.
Yes.
You've taken that journey to really get to know yourself and what makes you tick and what makes you different and what lights you up and what's difficult. Because we're not made the same. We all have different gifts. Um, okay, what values guide your work in your life?
Integrity. And I think, it's interesting. Truthfulness, I'm really about truth and grace. I really think there needs to be a blend of truth and grace. And I once won the Toastmaster Award, the Pollyanna Award in Toastmasters for letting people down easy with the evaluations because I always wanted to put grace. Yeah, they did this. They had this strange quirk, but I wanted to let them know it with grace. Um, and I think that's it. Grace and truth, keeping that balance. And did that answer the question?
Yes, no, that's beautiful. Okay, so daily habits, what daily habits or rhythms help you stay aligned and successful? And you gave a beautiful example of that, how you learned about your learning style and cleaning your home,
Yeah.
you know? So is there any other examples that you would share that would have helped you? Um,
I have to have time for reflection. I have, before I can move on, I have to have that time. So quiet time when I can just deep breathe and reflect. If it's reading scripture, if it's prayer, if it's just walking in a garden, I need that time. And I realize that
mm,
just downtime. Um, I always thought, when I did the disc, it came out that I was like 95% influencer, um, extrovert. And I'm not sure that that's really accurate. I think that in the bookends of my life, I've discovered I need more me time and to reflect, to pull it all together. So I think before I can do something, I really have to have that reflection time.
and that's a good reminder for all of us too, to be able to give ourselves that. So, what pivotal lesson has shaped your journey? And you shared a lot of them.
Wow. I think that bicycle trip across America had the most profound effect on me of anything. Now, this may surprise those of you who know me. Before then, I did not think I was creative.
Mm, wow.
I I'm like, I don't think I'm creative. And I once did this little thing where I sent out all these words to friends to bring, and they were supposed to pick which ones they thought identified me. And two of the top ones were cheerful and creative. And I was shocked. I mean, I could go with the cheerful part, but I was shocked at the creative part. I'm like, what? I'm not creative. But going on that bicycle trip and having time to really get to know the people on the back roads of this country, the little towns, and then hearing that seminar on
Mhm.
the philosophical meaning of beauty, those were deciding factors in my life that I think they really changed. That's why I don't talk about the skincare business anymore because I can't go there. I realize I have other assignments.
Mm, beautiful. All right, in closing, and then we'll take a few minutes for questions or jump into the conversation and give your insights on Marley's sharing. What encouragement would you offer to others?
Oh, I do that all the time. And one of my favorite ways of finding out how I can encourage someone is to ask them, what is your big dream? And I
Mhm.
find, particularly when I meet young people, I can meet people really easily and get them talking. That's that woo thing. And I very often go right to what is your big dream? Because if I can find out what their big dream is, then we can go to work and I can encourage them in that. I can see attributes in them. And it's thrilling for me and I hope it's exciting for them.
In you saying that, I just had this vision of a rose and how roses initially, the little buds are tight and then they open up with sun. You are a blossomer. Blossom open upper. There's got to be a better way to say that, but I just see you as somebody like a little magic wand that just helps people to to blossom.
Oh, it's when I've done this job and career transition coaching and actually I'm working with my grandson this week to do that with him. It is the most thrilling thing to to really help them see how each one of us is so amazing. And it gets me walking down the street and seeing people, and I just love them because I know they're distinctive, they're special, there's something on the inside of them that nobody else has. And that's why
Mm,
it's so sad to see a lost generation, people who don't know who they are and they figure the best way out is to take themselves out. And, but they're so special, and we all lose. We all lose when we do not receive the benefits and the giftedness of others.
that's beautiful. Well, this is a great opportunity to unmute yourself. And if you want to share any epiphanies, ahas about the presentation that Marlee so graciously offered, this is a great time. So just go ahead and unmute yourselves.
Well, Marley, I don't ever even remember how we met. I don't know how I ended up at your house, but I knew you as a coach, and that's how I knew you. And I think over these years I've forgotten that because I've seen your photography and the things that you're doing. And so hearing you talk again about coaching, it's like, oh yeah, that is what she does because that is the encouragement, the cheerleading, the listening. And so all these extra things and all the beautiful photography is just on top of that. But it's a good reminder that, we can call you as a coach, hire you as a coach. I think we forget. We think, oh, well, photography is her thing. So, yeah, it was a great reminder.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So Kim or Victoria?
Well, I just
I
really
jumped
enjoyed.
in too late.
Oh,
Sorry. I
oh.
just heard the last part and um so I didn't catch all of it, but just what I caught was really good. It was very inspiring.
Beautiful. Kim.
I really appreciated all of the personality type things because I am also very much into personality typing, and I've done the Strengths Finder, and I'll send you mine. I'll take you up on that offer because I'd love to hear somebody's opinion on all of that. It's been a long time since I've taken it, but all of those things have been so helpful in for me in my journey, and I just really enjoyed hearing your story and all the bits, how all the bits and pieces come together. Also, I think too, this is something I was reflecting on with Brian and myself, is just embracing the differences in our personalities. Um,
Yeah.
and how you do that with your engineer, right? You,
Yes.
you are you have the differences, but you don't make each other wrong
Yeah.
because you're different. You embrace the differences, and I love how you state that you bring the colors in his life and he holds onto your balloon strings. It's really sweet. It's really sweet way and it's embracing those differences that helps us stay together for a long
Right.
time.
Right.
Yeah,
Because he has things that I lack, and I have things that he lacks.
yeah.
Marley, what a beautiful story and a gift you are to us. And I want to encourage you to kind of pray about the life stage or your assignment of having a national stage. I really think America needs more of you. Like in every back road, in every city skyscraper, in every small business, in every home, like your voice really is just you're so enjoyable to listen to, and your pictures just make it so warm and inviting. And I love that you really value truth and grace because I think we need a lot of that. We need truth with grace, and I think you're headed in the right direction. And I'm just so happy I know you. So thank you.
It's beautiful. So this is also a really great time, and really all of you who've shared have really fulfilled this of just edifying and acknowledging Marley, because I think that's one of the things we've learned from this Heart Behind the Daily Hustle of Champions is yes, we get to learn about things about each other's lives and our journey, but we also it's a great time to be able to edify and acknowledge our friend that we've learned more about.
One of the things about Marley as a storyteller is I've always known that. And when we would go and meet for coffee, and she would tell me these stories, and I would use them. I would use them when I would speak to groups. I would use them in my teaching. And yet she didn't even know the impact of her stories. And I think that is the beauty of story is that, sorry, I didn't have my camera on. Um, Anyway, that's the beauty of story is that sometimes we don't even realize the impact our stories tell. And one time I told her about the Roxy story, she's like, "What? Really? Really?" That she didn't realize the power of the story. And so I'm so glad you wrote a book. And it does feel so timely. I know sometimes you feel like it took you a long time, but I think it was timely because there were things that had to happen before you wrote that book. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you. Thank you.
Marlee, you're on such a beautiful journey, and everyone you touch is changed by meeting you and knowing you. I know that's been true in my life from the first time that we really got to know each other, actually in a parking lot after a networking event. And you are such a joy, and you radiate. You really do radiate love, and you help. I know that every time I interact with you, I'm a better person. And so thank you for your journey and for pushing into it and always being curious and bringing out the best in everybody and giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. And just thank you so much for being you.
Thank you. Well, that's who I am. I can't be anybody else.
So thank you all. We went a little bit over, but thank you for the beautiful presentation that you offered. Brenda had to leave, but she said, "Thank you so much, Marlee, for sharing your story and life with us. I'm in awe." She's off to PT. Thank you, everyone. It was so nice to see you. So we're going to go ahead and close. But thank you all for joining us for the Heart Behind the Daily Hustle of Champions. We're scheduled on the third Monday for this champion program where we feature champion connectors. And you can learn more about them. But everybody is welcome. So you're welcome to invite classic connectors as well to join this. And next month, on September 21st, Brenda will be our Heart Behind the Daily Hustle of Champion featured champion. So that's for September. Um, October will be Kim Pelham, and November will be Kathy Miller. And December is still open. But thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate you. Have a great day.